Welcome into part 4 of how to financially prepare to buy a home. Today, we're going to get into a whole list of tips. Let's get after it.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What's the haps, my How to Buy a Homies? It's David Sidoni here to offer guidance, coaching, and practical tips for your financial planning for buying a home. If you're new to the show and you're looking for non-financial aspects of buying a home, start at episode 400. That's where you're going to get the #1 first-time homebuyer planning program in the United States. And you can also check out the full episode guide. We'll put that in the show notes for you as well. That way you can just scroll through titles and find the topics for anything and everything in the entire first-time homebuying universe. Today, this is part 4 of this financial preparation series. And I think I left up on tip number 8. I might have screwed up the numbers, but I'll get back on track. So this next tip is lowering your big expenses. We all know about skipping the Starbucks to save on your monthly budget. But when you have a goal to make the biggest financial purchase of your entire life, one less quad venti 7-pump, no foam, no whip, extra hot white mocha isn't going to put you over the finish line. If you're serious about doing this, and you must be because you're choosing to listen to this instead of anything else out there, then it's time for me to help you rethink your next big expense. Like say, for example, you're eyeing some dope new ride for your next car, and you're thinking that that's going to be the best way for you to attract a new flame. Well, you still have to drive them home in that bitchin' new car to your apartment. And trust me, there is nothing sexier than picking up a date in an old beater POS car, and then you can just humbly apologize for the less than luxury ride and explain to them that you're saving up to be a homeowner. I have heard that from many others, that line, that is way sexier than a flashy car. Hashtag adulting is hot. And I want to make sure we understand that for each of you, it's going to be different. Sacrifice is personal. You do you. If you need some motivation, listen to the rent replacement strategy in the playbook. That's episode 388. And the rent versus buy, which goes through all the math. That's episode 355. That'll help you fully embrace the numbers of what you're going to be doing and the massive financial benefits of dumping your rent. This is going to help you a lot when you're looking to hold off on big expenses or downsize some of the big expenses that maybe you've got going on right now. The problem with most first-time homebuyers is that without the proper education, they just use math that is just too simple. And it doesn't actually show the real value of having that complete rent replacement strategy. And when you wrap your brain around the full formula of all the math, you might find yourself a little bit more willing to make some sacrifices to get in sooner with that home ownership so you can maximize the financial benefits. And when you've got your brain fully wrapped around that, that may change the way that you're looking at choices in your life. I mean, your biggest expense right now is your rent. Can you reduce that over the next 6 months or a year? Can you get a roommate? I know a lot of people that look at it and say, hey, that's my biggest expense. Forget, not buying a new car. What if I reduce my rent for the next 6 months or a year? And a lot of times they've gotten a roommate or they've moved in with family, or perhaps maybe even being just a couple of years out. Would it be cool next time renting a smaller but cheaper place so you can save money? Knowing the whole time you're living there that you have a specific goal in mind, it can be worth it. At least consider the concept. Because at the very least, what that's going to do is it's going to expand your mindset so you consider different alternatives when you're doing your budget. We all have different big expenses. So figure out what's yours. And does it really, really add up when you consider all the math of home ownership and the benefits that that can do for you? All right, tip number 9, the smaller expenses. Now look, I know I told you that one less Starbucks venti iced matcha latte with oat milk with 1 pump of brown sugar in the foam, extra ice, shake twice, no straw, isn't gonna change your full budget. But reducing them every once in a while can't hurt. No, this isn't going to have the same impact as moving into a cheaper place, getting a roommate, or not buying that big expensive car. But every dollar you save counts. So use those budgeting apps. Remember, live your life, don't deny yourself, but set your personal threshold for budgeting and living your life at the same time. But make sure that you're only budgeting in the real pleasures. The apps really help to illuminate when you might be getting into overindulging. Smaller expenses for extra things, they add up. And if you're going to get serious about buying a home, you'll discover what you're willing to give up. It's a lot easier than you think when you've got that larger goal in mind. Okay, tip number 10, living on one income. Now, this might sound strange to a lot of you, and I know that there are lots of people out there who do live one income lives, and maybe that's something for you down the road. But think about this. There are plenty of people out there that are single parents. There are couples that have a stay-at-home parent or someone who needs to stay home for different reasons, or, just single people. The ultimate living on one income. But if you do happen to be a two-income family, why can't you do the same as that single person does? I've talked to couples that decide that they're going to live on one income and use the other one for saving for a home. But if you're listening to this and you are solo, by the way, we have tons of interview examples of single female buyers who use the education here to buy a home. Check the episode guide in the show notes. And I think there might be a few dudes in there, but the point is, single people can do this. And if you want to make this a real priority, you don't need another person to change your future. A solo individual can do the same thing as a couple who learns to live on one income by living on less. There's a great story I heard about Theodore Johnson. He was a UPS worker who started working for UPS in the 1920s and retired in 1952. His top salary over the time was $14,000. Now, when he was making his starting salary, I don't know, probably around $6,000 a year, a financial advisor told him that he had to put an extra 20% of his income into investments. Theodore said, dude, I only make $6,000 a year. I can't do that. Well, his advisor, mentor, perhaps evil friend told him, hey, what would you do if the government taxed you 20% more than they do? And of course, Theodore said, I don't know, I'd have to pay it. And so his evil friend said, so pay it. Now, cut to the end of the story. At age 90, he'd invested in his time at UPS, and he was worth over $70 million. So if you're solo, you don't have to live on the full 20% less for the next 40 years. But what if you tried to do that for the next 6 months or 12 months or 18 months? Instead of 70% going towards your living expenses with 10% savings and 10% investing and 10% charity like the richest man in Babylon, what if you did 70% living, 30% saving for a home? Or what if you did 60% living and 40% saving for a home? You can put your investments in charity on hold until you buy a home. But what if you had an advisor/evil friend like Theodore had? And he said 50% living expenses and 50% living on a home. Could you do it? It might sting, but maybe you could. And considering that we have several stories from interviews where buyers were shown options to buy a home where they only had to spend $10,000 all in, $5,000, even $3,000 or less for their full down payment and closing costs. Knowing that that could be an option for you, could you go hardcore for a year or maybe even just a few months? Look, you don't have to do it for 70 years, so when you're 90, you have $70 million, but you will have a home. By the way, there's an interview coming up that I just did with a couple. I just recorded it the other day. It'll be coming out sometime soon. And with the help of their unicorn team, they discovered down payment assistance programs, and their team also negotiated seller credits for them. And their total cost when they came to the closing table, all in, was $120.95. Look, homies, I'm not promising, hey, ask for a unicorn and that's what you're going to get. No. I'm just explaining people who have either gotten a unicorn team through us or discovered all these tips and tactics on their own. I have plenty of stories, tens of thousands of people reaching out to me, telling that they bought a $300,000 or $400,000 home, only bringing in $15,000, $10,000, $8,000. And high cost of living folks, $750,000, who only had to bring in $25,000 to buy a $750,000 home. So I'm not going to be like Theo's evil friend and tell you to go full Theo and live on practically nothing and eat ramen for the next 6 months. But is there a way that you could budget your own savings with the giant goal of home ownership? Okay, tip number 11. This is for self-employed home buyers, you 1099ers out there, or people with a business, small or large, who's looking to buy a home. First thing I want to do is break all the myths about this because there is tons of bogus information. And for 20 years, I've been seeing it. Not only have I been coaching and assisting buyers who are 1099 employees or self-employed or business owners and helping them find ways to get home loans, but I have been one of those buyers. I think it's going on 30 years now that most of my income has been 1099. With the right unicorn lending team specializing in first-time homebuyers, you can structure your income on paper so that the banks lending money will see you as a buyer. It is possible. Don't believe the myths. And many people out there are going to tell you it's not, including people in the real estate industry. So make sure that you get a reference to a professional that knows. There's a lot of different long mathematical formulas and breakdowns, and because each of you have different numbers, I can't give a big general explanation of what it is, but I can give you some basics. So getting a home loan approval is all about looking good on paper to the banks, the way that they want it. And what they want to see on paper is wildly different than what a financial advisor or a tax consultant does for you, because they're trying to get you the most money, not trying to show that you have the income to make a big purchase like this. The financial advisors and tax consultants, they can actually kill your chances to be approved for a home loan, even though technically you can totally afford it. I've actually seen that hundreds of times. I get it. They're doing their job. Their job is to do their best with your taxes and your finances, but they're not thinking about helping you with this big purchase. And it takes a little while and it takes time to set up for that. This is why I always say, get your real estate trusted advocates early, because they can help you shape your strategy. I can't emphasize this enough. You want to have your unicorn lender, who should be a strategic financial advisor, working with your tax people so that you can set yourself up, especially when you are self-employed or 1099. And so be prepared to adjust a few things so you can maximize your best path to home ownership and stability. And actually, after years and years and years, I finally found a tax advocate who gets it and knows how to explain things for a first-time home buyer. That's episode 370 with Dan the Taxman. And he can tell you all about how to structure when you're looking to buy a home. Tip number 12. Now, I'm going to drop this next tip here, even though it's not a specific tip to use while you're saving up for your down payment, but it can totally change your mental health when you're working on your savings. Because look, I get it. It can be discouraging to save up if you've got $1,000 and you think you need to save $35,000, or you're starting at $50,000 and you think you need $100,000. That will crush your enthusiasm. I get it. This tip is to remind you that you don't know what you don't know. And until your team, who specializes in first-time home buying, shows you what they know, your target number, the one you've got in your head right now, it could be way too high. And that's going to be depressing and absolutely demotivating. So here's your biggest tip. Your target down payment number can be reduced by a number of different factors. There are a lot of different strategies that can be shown to you. There are down payment assistance grants and programs that are not just for low-income people. There are actually a whole bunch of different programs for everybody. Remember the couple that only had to bring $120.95 to their closing? Yeah, that was thanks to down payment assistance. And not just one, but a couple stacked on top of each other. There is so much misinformation about down payment assistance, seller credits, and all the things that you could get to help reduce how much money you need to bring to buy a home. And a lot of the reason for the miscommunication about that, or the misinformation, I should say, about that, is because the programs change all the time. Well, if someone tells you, hey, I use this program, you should buy a home using this, well, it might be gone. It might be outdated. Or they might not even know about what's happening. There are 70 new down payment assistance programs that just popped up here in the fall of 2025. And keep in mind, the majority of ones that are available to you, they're not available to the entire country. They're state to state, county to county, sometimes even city to city. So you can't search a national website to find these. Your best way to get the maximum out of down payment assistance programs is to talk to local real estate pros so you can see what's available in the exact area that you're looking. And you can check the show notes for an episode where I go into down payment assistance in detail. That's episode 340. And if you're looking for motivation to keep you going, here's some for you. Over the past 6 years, we've helped buyers find programs and first-time home buyer grants to help them buy homes with different low down payment options. And here's some numbers to help you with your motivation. Now, in episode 389, the explanation of how to develop your own personal last lease ever program, all the math is there for you. There's a conservative number that we use in the last lease ever program. The total to buy a home is 8% of the purchase price. That's a 5% down payment and 3% for the closing costs. Now, that is if you're not getting any down payment assistance and if you're not getting any credits from the seller negotiated for you with your professional real estate support team. So that 8% down, that's the maximum that most first-time home buyers need. Most of our first-time home buyers actually use loans that have a down payment of 3% or 3.5%. So their total is only 6 to 6.5%. And that's very conservative. 6 to 6.5% of the purchase price. We have had several different buyers secure $300,000, $400,000 homes with $10,000 total. Sometimes $5,000, sometimes even $3,000 or a lot less. And if you're one of those people that lives in a high cost of living area and you think, well, that's great for them, but I'm going to need $100,000 because I'm trying to buy a $600,000 home. Absolutely not always. I've seen buyers for $600,000, $700,000 homes getting in for $40,000, $30,000, sometimes even $25,000 total. The right specialized first-time homebuyer real estate support team, coaching, and guiding them to reveal all of the options that are missed by so many inexperienced realtors and lenders. It really is so exciting because with the right guidance, you're going to discover options that most of the general public, and sadly, unfortunately, most of the real estate community, they don't have any idea that these options even exist. So grab your last lease ever numbers so you can set up your manageable and attainable goals to keep your mental health in place, to keep your motivation locked in at full tilt. And tip number 13. Now, I do want to give a little disclaimer. This tip isn't for everybody because it involves asking people that you know for help. I'm fully aware that this particular tip comes from a place of privilege. And for some people, they don't have that option. So for those of you without the means to ask friends or family, I got you too. We've helped all kinds of people who had to do this totally on their own become homeowners. We're talking about single moms, divorced buyers, first-generation buyers, no one in their family had ever bought a home before. And we've even helped people. We got one who lived in a van and another guy who was homeless in his teens. So know that we're 1,000% here to support you. This tip is for those of you with friends or family that may pitch in to help you with your home purchase, especially if you think that they may need some convincing. You can check the show notes. I do an annual episode around Thanksgiving. It's usually entitled something about down payment assistance, but what it really is the cheat sheet on how to beg for money. What I do is explain how to reasonably and logically, around the Thanksgiving dinner table, explain the benefits of home ownership. This year's episode is going to be coming out Thanksgiving week. I think it's probably around November 24th, 2025, so look for that. All right, that's the tips for part 4. Coming up in part 5, we're going to discuss student loans, calculating and managing your debt, working your retirement savings while budgeting for a home, and more on the tax benefits and low down payment options. Be sure that you follow and subscribe the podcast so you get all the free education automatically and sent directly to you wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you got a minute, if you learned anything here, it would really help us out if you dropped a quick written review on Apple or Spotify. And if you do have specific questions, something that wasn't covered precisely in here, go to howtobuyahome.com. There's a button to Ask David. Ask me directly. It'll be me answering it, not a customer service representative, not an AI bot, me. Ask me anything. And of course, for those of you who are feeling like you're ready to have a coach, a guide help you in your pre-planning, there's also a spot on the website where you can ask for a local unicorn in your area. Keep saving, keep working your plan. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.